Are you here for the data gathering BoF? If you're not here for the data gathering BoF, you're in the wrong room. Okay. At least I see a few hands, so it means that some of you are here for the data gathering BoF. No, you stay. So I asked my colleague Aris to clap his hands after I finish presenting, so at least I know that one person will do it. If any other here wants to be nice to me and want to clap the hands, I would be more than happy. So we still have 5 more minutes. I think we're all very tired after quite a long day. Oh, I see my name there, very weirdly spelled. Yeah, so how tired are we? We still have 1 more day to go, just 1. It's not that bad. And we have a social later today, so we will be having alcohol. That always helps. Or nice food. If you don't drink alcohol, I don't. So you can drink water, juice. So I think we need some energizing exercise here, and I will try to get people participate with me on something. Can I please ask you to stand up just for 2 minutes? Stand up for your... Oh, thanks a lot. Look at that. Yes, stand up, stand up. If you're here for the data gathering BoF, stand up. Start moving. That's good. After spending the whole day sitting down, we're all with our energy quite low. So can you please inhale at the same time that you put your hands above your head? Inhale. Exhale while you bring your hands back down. Again, inhale. Exhale. And a few more times. Don't hyperventilate. Inhale. Exhale. Now you can sit back down. Thank you. Isn't that energizing? For me at least it is. Sometimes I do that in the morning when I just wake up. And it's like, yeah, I'm ready to get started. Thanks a lot. I thought it would be just George and Aris because they're my colleagues. But thanks for the rest of people in the room who participated. Did you? That's great. Now you can do it before every session. You will see how it helps with energizing, get the blood running in your veins. Do we know how the other session is going? Shall we wait a few more minutes? Well, maybe I can start with explaining, well, maybe not explaining, but asking. Those of you who are here for the data gathering BoF, is it just because you're curious? You want to know what it is? Do anyone know what a BoF is? Not just data gathering, but what does BoF mean? Anyone? BoF? 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 Just 3 letters that don't mean anything? Do you know? Can you tell us what BoF means? Sharat? To Mike? Say your name, affiliation, and what BoF means.
Hi, I'm Sharat Shabnil. I'm from X-Telecom, PG. BoF means basically birds of the same feather, probably.
Say again?
Birds of the same feather. No.
And do you know where it comes from?
Not really, but probably it's about people of the same interest or something.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what we're here for, right? Birds of a feather. Apparently there's some saying, and we have something similar in Spanish. I'm originally from Uruguay in Latin America, and I speak Spanish, so you may realize that I have an accent. So birds of a feather fly together. So that's why we call these kind of sessions BoF. It's a group of people with similar interests who get together to discuss something. Sometimes BoFs don't even have an agenda. In this case, we do have a sort of an agenda because I invited 2 people to present after me. But yeah, there are different kinds of BoFs at APNIC conferences or at other conferences. ITF, for example, there are BoFs. And yeah, so the idea is the discussion of a group of people who have similar interests. So although we do have some speakers, I will try to make sure that we have enough time for discussion, and I encourage you to please go to the mic and share with us whatever you're thinking, not what you're doing tomorrow, but related to what we're discussing here, this common interest that we share. So after my presentation, after Christian's presentation, after Philip's presentation, if you have questions, comments, experiences of things you've been doing as part of your job that you think relate in some way to what we've been talking about, please share it with us so we get the most out of this session. And with that, that's 5:30. That was just an informal introduction, and I will start with my presentation. So BoF, in general, we say it's a group of people with common interests that get together to discuss about those interests. In particular, this BoF is about data gathering and analysis. And I wanted to provide a bit of a background. This is the fourth BoF session about data gathering and analysis that we have during APNIC conferences. We started doing this because in the survey of 2016, one of the questions was about people wanting to contribute data so that APNIC could, so that they could have a better understanding of the internet in the region. And 80% of people who participated in the survey say that they would contribute data. And so we wanted to have more detail about, okay, what kind of data, what are you interested in? So in this last survey, and the results were published a few days ago, 50% of the people expressed an interest on internet trends and benchmarking information on specific topics: network security, network infrastructure, and usage of new and specific technologies. So I will be presenting a bit on some products I'm working on, and I think that it's great that, not coincidentally, those products relate to these topics. So I'm glad that we are aligned, but we still want more feedback from the community. We have lots of opportunities of engagement with our community. We have 2 conferences a year. We also participate in other conferences, in other spaces. We have community outreach and trainings and other activities that we perform. And during all those activities, we try to talk to the community, get their feedback. But we wanted to leverage those opportunities and do even more and formalize the way we get input from our community. This BoF is just one other instance where we get feedback from our community. And the way of formalizing that input, the way we get input from our community, is that we are now doing product management at APNIC. I've written 2 blog posts that you can find in APNIC blog about how and why we are now building products at APNIC. So maybe it's not new that we are building products. We were building products before, but we are now formally implementing a product framework. And so those 2 blog posts explain a bit how and why we started doing that. And the second blog post is a bit more detailed about that life cycle that you can see there. That's the life cycle we will be applying, not just for new ideas, but also for existing products. But I think the main part, because as I was saying, we were already, I think I have a green light. So this part about building, launching, and operating products is something that we've been doing for years. But we realized that this problem space area of that life cycle is something we needed to get better at, and that's what we're trying to focus on. And some ways that we want to use for you to provide input to us so that we can make sure that we really understand your problems and that we build solutions that will work for you and that you will use is by participating. So during conferences, you can go to the mic and, as I was saying, share your experience. If you have questions, ask questions, say whatever comments that you think are related to the topics. But you can also participate on surveys. You can talk to us face-to-face while we're here. And specifically for products, we've been running some user testing sessions. Some of you may have participated yesterday or today. We may be running more surveys and other user research activities. We also have the services roadmap webpage where you can provide your feedback. We have a feedback email, and you can contact the help desk. So not having means for participating is not an excuse. You have lots of options there. Oh, I want. So, yeah, main thing is that we need your input, we need your participation, and again, this BoF is just one example of how you can participate. And as I was saying, we are doing product management at APNIC now, so I wanted to start this BoF by sharing with you an update on the products that I've been working on. In Kathmandu, APNIC 45, we had this data gathering BoF as well, and I presented at BGP data collection initiative I was working on as my big project for the year. But the thing is that since then, I changed roles. I was an internet data scientist when I presented in February in Nepal. I'm now a product manager. And that big project for the year became just one of my products. Now I have that one and two more products, another one related more to network security, and the third one that I call more than stats, because we don't really know what it is yet. We know that it may be related to stats, but probably not just to stats and a lot of other things. So by now, I'm calling it more than stats. So as I was saying, the first one is related to routing. We have some hypotheses about the internet topology in the Asia-Pacific region not being complete or accurate, and we believe it's because there's not enough BGP data. So we think that that may affect the way the network operators in the region detect and troubleshoot network issues. So we've been having these interviews yesterday, today, and we're trying to talk more to network operators in the community to understand if these hypotheses are valid, if that's really the case, and if there are any other concerns or pain points that we from APNIC may be able to help you with. My second product is more related to network security. Those of you who were at the network security workshop or on Monday at the first TC may have heard Adley talking about the HoneyNets project. We have some HoneyNets and some partners who have HoneyNets and are sharing data with us from those HoneyNets. And we think that the network operators in our region may find it hard to access fresh HoneyNet data from multiple HoneyNets at a time. So we think that we could provide some advice by aggregating and summarizing data from all those HoneyNets. And we have a prototype of a solution we think could be useful for this. And we've been doing some user testing yesterday and today, and we still have some more tomorrow. So that print screen is a mock-up. There's still no functionality implemented. It's just some screens. There are some flows implemented, and what we've been testing was around those mock-ups. We want to make sure that the vocabulary that we are using is clear, that the flows are easy to follow. And by now, we are playing with this name, trying to see if when people see it, they kind of get the idea that we want to transmit. So that's something else that we're testing. It's not just the mockups, but also the name. So if you have any suggestions for a great name, you can also suggest that. And my third product, as I was saying, I call it more than stats because we don't know what it is yet, but it may be related to stats, but some other things as well. But the key here is that some surveys resulted in people asking for information or measurements or statistics that we were already publishing somewhere in the website, and people just didn't know or they couldn't find it. So we're trying to work on some solution. I've used portal, but I know that I'm abusing a bit that word because, again, as I was saying, we don't know what this solution will be. So it may not be a portal, but the whole idea is to bring to a single place all that information, measurements, and statistics that we have here and there in the website, and make it easy for people to find that. So probably related to this product is what we already had called the Internet Directory, that in the next few days we will be launching a new version. And just as an avant premiere, I wanted to include a screenshot of the new Internet Directory. But if you're interested in this, if this is something that you've used, it's about it's statistics on delegations made by APNIC. So keep an eye on the blog. We will announce it in the next few days, probably. So if you're interested in any of these products, please come talk to me today, tomorrow, or send me an email. And I would be happy to hear from you if you have any questions or comments or suggestions or whatever. So the mic is open for a few minutes before we have the next speaker. Shall we do an energizing exercise again so that people wake up? Yeah, please.
My name is Paulo from Tonga. Do you think it's possible to share the raw data of the honeypots or honey nets, or the data that collected, especially for Tonga? So we're interested in Tonga, so when maybe we practice tools or something like that can generate more meaningful information. Not for the network administrator, but for the management people to see how the current data, if it's possible.
So I don't think we will be sharing raw data. The idea is that we will be aggregating and summarizing and offer to members information about what we see coming from their network, because we don't want to shame publicly anyone, and also because we don't own that data. As I was saying, the honey nets are owned by partners of APNIC, and I'm not into network security. I don't know much about network security, but as far as I know, people in network security are very concerned about, like, I don't know, it's sensitive information, and it's not owned by us. So the idea is not to share like all the raw data publicly, but through that product that we're working on, you would be able to see information regarding your network. And I think that's what you're mostly interested in, right? Did I get that right?
That's all right. I think it's clear that you're not sharing. From the research perspective, if it's possible, for Tonga, data, if we have some information so that after this can we retain for the people of the nations of the economy of Tonga for future management or something like that, policy or something like that.
Yeah.
How do we improve our policy? It will helpful for us.
Okay.
Or rather than bringing the aggregate information, we just interesting. We can mining some other interesting feature which help us.
Yeah, I see.
Especially if we formally request from the government of Tonga, like Tonga said, or it's possible to share that information.
So the main goal for this network security product we're working on would be to start the conversations and understand where APNIC could help you. I have George Michelson in the mic, who is one of the subject matter experts for this product. So I will let him reply.
So this is George from APNIC. It's a tension. It's a dynamic tension between two sides of a story. The people who operate the honey nets are sensitive about how much information is revealed. And so they've asked us not to identify specifically which place is necessarily seeing a problem, because they don't want to break bounds of privilege and secrecy about how they are building a model of bad behavior in the network. This community operates in a circuit of trust. And what we are doing is asking them, can we take some of the information? And the general feeling we got was, you can tell the responsible party about a region of addresses pretty much anything about their own network, because they are really entitled to know that. But about other people's networks, that kind of goes a little further than they were happy. So the general sense is that we thought, well, we could say, how about for all the networks in Tonga? How about all the networks in Tuvalu or in the Cook Islands or in Samoa or in Fiji? So we can do aggregates at different economy levels. And we thought we could maybe start to explore if we can do aggregation over people's peers. So if we understand peering relationships at an IX, we could maybe say, this is what you look like, but all the other people in the IX that you're peering with, they have this aggregate behavior. And then we haven't broken the bounds of secrecy. So if you're saying inside the Tongan community, you'd like to see all the data, everything about Tonga, so that you can look at this at a national level and coordinate, that's interesting. That's something we have to think about. But maybe that means that you need to be in a relationship with the CERT in Tonga, so that the CERT in Tonga can be comfortable about their inclusion in a HoneyNet project and about what happens to the information that's being collected there. We're trying to balance different people's views coming into this, but we hear what you are saying. I understand that you're saying, as a researcher in this community, you would like as much data as possible to work with. That is what I think I hear.
Thank you very much. And another thing, because we don't at this moment, we don't have the national cybersecurity policy. In order to sell the idea, to make that security attention to the management people, like Prime Minister, we need some information. Maybe ethnic will be support to make security is instead of considered as a security, we need to attention, so that we put more resources on that to Tonga. Thank you. This is my point for research and also for national security as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
Hi, I'm Serena from Samoa. My question will basically be around the interface of ethnic net health check. So in terms of, like, say, for example, you were, say a nation was able to deploy multiple honeypots, maybe from a client side, and this is through the authority of a government. How could one entity of the government access that information in terms of some sort of agreements with ethnic in terms of seeing the security impact of the infrastructure from the internet attacks?
At this stage, as George was mentioning, we're not considering offering a government or any other organization information that is not related to their own network. Because of that sensitivity of showing someone else that your network is sending malicious traffic, we are just considering offering you information about what we see coming from your network. Maybe it's something we need to evaluate, offering governments that possibility, but I think that there are lots of concerns to be taken into consideration. I think it's a sensitive area. So yeah, at this stage, I think the main feature for you would be that you would be able to log in a system that will provide you information about your network, about the prefixes that you are responsible for.
Okay, thank you. One more question. In terms of the data that's collected, would act on the behalf of the botnet clusters in terms of trying to deactivate these machines or bots that are attacking the networks?
I don't think I get your question. What? Can you repeat that?
Say, for example, like you have a list of machines that are hitting a certain node, say, for example, in Samoa. Until someone does something about these addresses that are hitting these nodes, will continuously get attacked by these nodes from overseas.
So, George again. When a honeynet is collecting data, what it's trying to identify is where is it coming from. So the story that we're telling people is not you are getting traffic from places, we're telling the story you're sending traffic out. You're originating, you're the source of this traffic. The most recent incident that has happened in our community was an outbreak of Mirai, which happened in one of the large island communities in our area. And the HoneyNet people were able to get in touch with the ISPs and that economy and say, you have a really sharp rise in this signal. It looks like you've got exposure. Maybe a customer home router has an open management portal, and they were able to help dampen down that attack. But the thing is, they were saying, you're sending the packets. Some of what you were saying was talking about receiving the attack, and that isn't the signal that we're giving. We're giving the signal you're originating, sourcing the attack. So at the point you come into our system as the responsible party for a block of addresses, you could imagine you're going to get a warning. It won't be blink text, but we'll be trying to get your attention saying, we think you might have a problem. And then we measure the effect, because over time you're able to get information and assistance, maybe one-on-one work with CERT specialists to help push that problem back down again. So as we measure over time, we might see things smooth out a bit, but it's about originating the problem, not receiving it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Titus from PNZ, just one question with regard to data coming in. Does the policy based, if there's any policy on the router, the data hitting the policy first and then it goes to the honeypot, or the honeypot is behind the policies set aside in the router devices?
Again, I don't know much about network security in general, but I think honeypots are out of the perimeter, so it's like not behind your firewall, because honeypots are supposed to attract all that malicious traffic. So the traffic wouldn't go through your firewall or any filter, it's just like out.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yep.
Sanjay from APNIC. No, I just want to respond about the takedown, the botnet takedown. How can this project help in taking down botnets? Actually, it does help. So if it will tell you if your network hosts a botnet, so then you can take it down because the botnet is in your network. So the HoneyNet will do that. Will tell you if you've got botnets members in your network and help you identify which host, right?
Thanks. Yep.
Just following up on that question, Samoa, is APNIC looking at the other side though, the originators? Because you have all this data, you're looking at from the honeypots. Are you guys thinking of doing any work to try and find the other side of the problem?
Yeah, so that's the main goal of this product, that if you manage a network, if you received a prefix from APNIC and we see malicious traffic coming from IPs in that prefix, we will let you know so that you can fix that problem. So I think the key is thinking about, like, we are a community in internet, not just in the Asia Pacific, but the global internet, right? Today, it may be your network sending attacks to another network, and if we let you know you're sending malicious traffic, please fix it, you will help someone else who is receiving those attacks, and tomorrow it could be you receiving attacks from someone else, and we will let them know so that they fix it. So this service is about letting you know that your network is sending malicious traffic, probably to someone else. Okay? Any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks a lot. As I was saying, the whole idea of this BoF is to share about how we can make things better on things related to that data gathering, right? And I love collaboration, and I think that it's something very efficient to do, right? If I have a great idea and there's someone else doing something similar, instead of reinventing the wheel, I think collaborating with that person is much more efficient. So for this BoF, I invited Christian from the RIPE NCC, who is responsible for Ripestat, and they do a lot of things related to data gathering. So the next speaker is Christian Teuschel. Welcome, Christian.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sophia. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Christian Teuschel. I am with the RIPE NCC in Research and Development. And yeah, yesterday I arrived after 34 hours of flying. Well, transfer, something like that. And it was in the evening, so it was dark. But when I opened the curtain this morning, yeah, it was very impressive. And I'm totally convinced that the prize for best venue goes to APNIC, because the last RIPE meeting in Marseille was good, but that view definitely beats it. But yeah, I'm not here to talk about venues, but about Ripestat. And yeah, Ripestat, I think, is also an awesome tool, and that's unique to the RIPE NCC region. But let me explain what Ripestat is. So Ripestat is and has been developed with the goal to provide insights through statistics. And from that point of view, it doesn't surprise that it became the open data platform of the RIPE NCC data. So we're talking about routing data, registry data, and active measurement data. So that would be RIPE Atlas. And above that, it's also information service for other internet-related data sources. Before I'm going to show you the data sources, I'm just curious, how many of you know about Ripestat? So show some hands. So that's a good reason why I'm here, to maybe bring you also Ripestat a little bit closer. Altogether, we have around 25 different data sets that Ripestat is being providing. So we have RIPE database, we have the INR, the IRR, we also have the data of other internet registries, routing registries. We have BGP data in there, so that would be RIS. Then we have RIPE Atlas, so a couple of active measurement data sets like MLab, speed checker, so this is broadband measurement data, geolocation data, MaxMind, blacklist data, well, you name it. We constantly add new data sets, so if you want to keep up to date with that, then I recommend you to follow this link. But let's continue with the concept of Ripestat. So in 2010, when we started to build Ripestat, the basic idea was to provide a one-stop shop for internet data. And what you can see here is the original design that we had in 2010. That improved a little bit, so it went through a couple of iterations of corporate identity changes. I would believe that it looks right now prettier, but you know, that's in the eye of the beholder. But what we also did over the last few years was we rethought the way we're going to provide insight and how we're going to deliver data. And the outcome of that, you're going to see here. So we're gonna have these 3 layers, and usually I always have a problem from which side to start. Since we are a bottom-up community, I'm gonna start from the lowest one, which is the Ripestat data API. And I'm gonna explain each of these layers a little bit later, but in a nutshell, I would say it provides you with raw data to all these data sets that we have. And it's all accessible, transparent, so especially from the audience that we had the question about the raw data. Here you have access to a lot of data. On top of the data API, we have something called widget API, and the idea is that we're going to provide a user interface to the underlying data API. So each of these layers caters for different audiences or users, right? And on top of that, we're going to have what you would see if you're going to go to stat.ripe.net. So that's kind of an application container. And talking about the user groups that we serve there, the lowest one is usually for people that build applications. The middle one is for people that have kind of understanding of development and maybe network operators that want to build their own dashboards. So this is possible with the widget API. And on top of that, we have the Ripestat Web API, which is basically serving people that have just ad hoc use for Ripestat. Then the Ripestat Data API. As I said before, it's providing you with raw data. From a technical perspective, it's a JSON RPC API. So basically, it's all steered by URLs. And we have more than 50 different data calls. And we also have a documentation for that. So if you're going to follow that link, then you're going to find the documentation for all these 50 different data sets. And then the widget API. The widget API was developed with open standards in mind. So we developed that with HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. JavaScript actually is a bit outdated, so the stack uses jQuery and require.js. This is something that we are trying to improve and update. So we are thinking about a revamp of all that, but I'm gonna get to that a bit later. Talking in numbers, we have more than 50 different widgets for that. And you're going to find a documentation for that as well under this link. The widget API itself is kind of a building block, what you could see in these 3 layers. It is the building block for the Ripestat container. So if you're going to go to stat.ripe.net, then what you're going to see there is kind of a single page application. We are not completely there yet, but I mean, that's the goal, which facilitates widgets and also data calls. Since these widgets are based on open standards, you can even embed these widgets in any web page. So every widget has kind of a command interface on the bottom where you can see a link. And if you're going to click on the embed code, then you're going to copy a snippet of HTML code that you can easily embed in any HTML page. And then you can build dashboards. So Ripestat has been started in 2010, and since then it has gone a long way. You could say that in the beginning we had around 5,000 requests per day. That changed a bit later. And at the moment we have something around 50 to 60 million requests per day. And on average that's coming from 1.5 million unique clients or IP addresses. I mean, lately we have a bit more. So just yesterday we had 1.9 million unique IP addresses on the user interface. And the reason why we're going to see this change, well, I mean, my interpretation is that open data and data-driven decision making is becoming more fashionable, and people crave for data, especially internet-related data in the sense of routing data. So this is also something that we see in the statistics, that the majority of the data that's being requested is routing data, and second place is registry data. In general, Ripestat makes quite a significant amount of requests to the RIPE-NCC. So it's more than 50% of all the requests that come to the RIPE-NCC go to Ripestat. I mean, the exact number is a bit difficult to say, but it's less than 76%. And you can imagine that running a system like Ripestat has its challenges, and we had to think about operations. And this is something that usually our R&D department is not really good at. So we had our moments, I would say. One thing that if you think about operationally is, of course, monitoring. You need to know what's going on in the system. And what we established was, I mean, we started to build more and more dashboards for ourselves for what's going on in the system. And they are based on the ELK stack, so we are using Kibana for that. And unfortunately, even though that we have a cluster of Elasticsearch machines, we can at the moment only fit 1 month of request data in there, because it's such a huge amount of data. But with these, I'm back. With these monitoring solutions, we exactly know how many requests we get per minute, how that's being distributed over the server cluster, how many errors, so we always keep an eye on the errors. But we also have self-developed applications, and from my experience, they usually proved more reliable than sometimes these ELK stack solutions. Then another challenge operationally was the front-end capacity. At the moment, we have 18 servers just serving clients, so dealing with the end-to-end connectivity. And we are operating at this moment at full capacity, actually since December. And we're planning to add more machines, but together with our IT department, we are changing the orchestration software. And this is just going on, and after this is done, then hopefully we can add more resources. We definitely also have challenges in the backend. I'm not going into too many details about this one, but what you're going to see here is the technology stack that we use to store routing data and Atlas measurement data. I did an analysis last year in October, and we were scratching 4.4 petabyte, so that's kind of significant. I think important is to mention that the majority of the system is a age-based solution, and we have a couple of other big data technologies around that requires the entire department to keep that floating. That kind of gets me to what's the plan, what are the goals for the near future. And first of all, we want to improve the system stability. Although we're going to process already up to 60 million requests per day, there are certain moments when the amount of requests is that high that we can't serve them. I mean, this is also to protect the backends and to guarantee that everyone has a good experience in using Ripestat. And then we reject too many requests. We also have throttling in place, so you can't do more than 8 concurrent requests from one IP address, so that also helps. And as soon as we're gonna add new machines, we try to lift these limitations to provide more services to everyone. Because I think it was in the panel discussion for CDNs where they said that rate limiting and user friendliness is not something that goes together. Then the second point, I already mentioned that. We are trying to update the user interface. One important part is to become more user-friendly, mobile user-friendly. And that is not the only thing. The other thing is that the system, the user interface is a bit outdated, so we have it already for 5 years. And in those 5 years, we collected so much experience on what we could improve in the user interface, and we really want to get that in the new system. And I think ideas, that's not what we are lacking, it's more to get it down and implemented. The last point that I see as a goal for Ripestat is that we're going to reach out and work together with other areas. And that's rather simple, because Ripestat is a global information system, and I think we should just acknowledge that we should also have a global support for a system like that. Let me go into a bit more details about the cooperation. So we have currently quite a diverse user base, so it's coming from all over the world. But if you're going to look at the actually user requests from Ripestat, then what we see is a bit of a bias. I think that many regions outside of the RIPE-NCC region are not really well represented. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One reason is obviously that not everyone knows about Ripestat, as we have seen with this small sample in the room. The other one could be a language barrier, and especially when I'm traveling within our region, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So in the Russian area, we see that English is not a very well-spoken language. So I see that as a rather important point as well. And another point is that we might not address regional or local topics in Ripestat. And how are we going to solve that? Well, we have partners. They are called the other areas. And I see that as a very viable solution to improve on all of these 3 points. And what is actually already going on is that we're going to propose kind of a cooperation to LACNIC. And at this moment, this includes 2 phases. The first phase would be that we're going to make the user interface of Ripestat their own, right? I mean, we empower and also give ownership to areas by rebranding the user interface, which also enforces the regional acceptance. And the other point is that we simply provide a different language on Ripestat. So that would be the localization of textual content. The second phase is actually not really specified yet in details, because I'm a fan of Agile. So I think we first do the first phase, and then we're going to talk about the second phase. Let's cross this bridge when we are there, right? But what we already know about is that we want to cooperate on data and also the operation of the system. And there it totally fits what Sophia mentioned, that we simply work together on routing information, on collecting routing information together. So here you can see some technical details on how we want to go further with that. I'm not going into details about that because unless you're interested in that. But I'm pretty sure you will be able to read it up on RIPE Labs in a couple of weeks. As I said, that this is a proposal at the moment, so we still wait for more buy-in from LACNIC and also a bit from the RIPE-NCC. And my colleague, Agustin, he will present in 2 weeks at the LACNIC meeting. The same proposal, just a little bit with more details. And then we're going to see where we are going. But we can already identify certain benefits. And yeah, these are definitely that, that we lower the language barrier. Because that would help, especially in areas where English is not the preferred language. And that we're gonna get local knowledge, regional knowledge, and regional data into Ripestat, so that we can cater for different regions. And what's also important is that we're gonna get support from the RRs related to feedback channels. And that will also help everyone to improve the system. So last but not least, there is just, I wanted to put some remarks down why we chose for LACNIC as a first start for this cooperation. The first one is rather simple, because language-wise, with English, Spanish and Portuguese, you can cover basically the entire region. That's not so easy in other regions. Another point, of course, is that my colleague Agustin Formosa used to work for LACNIC. Right now, he's working for the RIPE-NCC, and I hope we can facilitate his knowledge in this transfer of ideas. And another one is that Daniel Karenberg, the chief scientist at the RIPE-NCC, spent a significant amount of time at the LACNIC office, and he was already preparing some ties between different departments of LACNIC and the RIPE-NCC. And that leaves me with the last question. Would APNIC join these efforts? Well, you don't need to answer right now. Let's move on to the questions.
With John Brewer here. With JavaScript tools, I'm unlikely to ever use your services. Do you have Python tools coming for Ripestats?
Actually, we already have that. So we have a GitHub repository where we're going to have a wrapper for the widget API, for the data API. Sorry, and I mean, I hope that we can extend on that. But again, I think more important things first, and I think with providing a Ripestat data API, we give everyone access to this data. And then I think if we have more time, we will definitely improve on programmatical tools so that you can use this API. But I mean, my stand is a little bit that if you work on a low-level data API, then coding is not a problem for you. So then it would be rather easy to build it yourself. And on the other side, if we're going to support the language, then we also need to choose a language, because then we need to end up supporting Python, C# and Go, and you know, I mean, this is a never-ending story. Again, if we're going to have enough resources, then we can definitely do that. But for the moment, I think our futures for the our goals for the near future will be what I before listed in a way.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is focused on the back end of the RIP. The data is increased exponentially in terms of volume and veracities. Do you think the performance of the tools is, especially for the extraction and processing of the raw data, is then easy on software or hardware that you faced with, instead of trying to keep the performance of the tool, instead of the raw data coming very fast and high volume? Can you share a little bit information from the back end?
Okay. first of all, exponential growth of data, that is partially true. So it's true that we constantly extend our measurement network, and I think if we're going to work together on increasing the spread of routing collectors, then we will see an uptake in data. I think the current technology stack, or the technology stack that we applied 5 years ago, I mean, this was the time when we made the decision about which technology to use. I think that can easily keep up with what we were doing at the time. I mean, right now it's just adding new machines to have more storage space, but the tools can handle that. So Hadoop is a pretty good platform for that. But the thing that I think you're pointing at is new features, because I think raw data in itself is not the solution. I mean, it's part of the solution, but if we are moving towards intelligence, data-driven decision-making, then we need to do something with this data. And the simplest form is aggregation. We have, for example, another project that's called Country Reports, which is part of Ripestat, which takes all the data sets that we have and aggregates that on a country level, which provides you with completely different insights on what's going on. But as I said, that's in the simplest form. If I'm gonna think a little bit forward in the future, what could happen, I think that streaming is maybe a little bit of an answer to the information needs that are increasing, but I don't think that streaming will be the solution in the end, because as the data increases, I'm not sure if it also makes sense that we're going to move a lot of data from place A to B just in a more reasonable recent time. So I think that what we should strive for is along the way of aggregation, further also apply machine learning to really extract the knowledge, the information of the piles of data that we have, and provide access to that. And this is still a bit of a challenge, because I know at the moment there are so many new database technologies, ClickHouse, and so basically technologies that make it very easy to use a structural query language to work on a huge pile of data. This is something that we are looking into, but I'm pretty sure it will still take us at least a year until we adopt these technologies. But then I think it should also fit with the goals that we follow up with this information service, and yeah, that is about providing insights into the data. So I think in the end, for us, for our situation, switching backend technologies is not that easy. I mean, we can't just forget about what we did the last 5 years and then jump on a new technology. So I think we have to find some kind of balance between providing using new technologies, but always with the goal of providing new insights in a way.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Christian? I have a question to the room. There was some hands of people who use Ripestat. Is there anyone who wants to share what they usually use it for? If there are any specific widgets that they find more useful? Hello.
George here. I use the prefix widget. I had a request recently to do some data on historical routing visibility of prefixes. I had about 10,000. I did them single-threaded with a 1 second delay because I didn't want to flood you. And now that I know I can do 8 at a time, I'm very happy. Your service was fantastic. I used Python with a simple JQ filter to sub-select the specific fields I needed. It just worked. It was beautiful. So thank you very much. The prefix interface was beautifully self-documented as well. I went to a widget, I extracted the URI for a data fetch. It just worked.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that comment. Well, as I was mentioning, as part of this new product framework, we are trying to understand better the needs of our community. And I think that these conversations we are starting with Christian about the possibility of a collaboration will be informed by communication with our community. And if we see that there are problems or if there are things that we could do better with this collaboration for our community, it would be great. So it would be very, very good to hear from you on that. If it's not here, on any of the other channels that you have to get in contact with us. Yes, John.
I just might ask a question about Atlas. The number of probes working has hovered around 10,000, 10,500 for the last, say, 5 years. New probes that go out, in my experience, have had a 50% survival rate, not because people have unplugged them, but because they've failed. Do you have a new version of Atlas that's going to solve these problems? And if so, when is that going to come out?
Yes. The reason why we have seen a lot of probes going down was simply because we used a USB stick as temporary storage on the probe. So if the connectivity goes down, so that we still keep the data. There were file system issues with this USB stick. So we advised a lot of users, and a lot of users actually did that, to replace the USB stick. Then the probe was working fine. And then we realized that the vendor of these probes, so the TP-Links, was running out of stocks. They were not producing it anymore, so we switched to another platform. And the new probes are at the moment provisioned at our office, and then will be soon available. Mm-hmm. So I have one question to the audience. How many of you could I convince to test Ripestat, give it a try? All right, right now I assume that that's the people that didn't show their hands before when I said, do you know Ripestat? Well, okay, mission achieved, that's good.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thanks Christian.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, we will move on to our next speaker, who unfortunately couldn't come to join us in Paradise in New Caledonia, and so he will be presenting remotely. Philip Branch, he's involved in a project on BGP anomaly detection, and I think that's a very interesting topic, and that it could be very interesting for our community to consider maybe some collaboration there as well. So I asked Philip to present about it. So thanks, Philip, for joining us, and you can start with your presentation.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, that's a pretty grim picture. Let's have a look. Alrighty, I'll just start this up and try and share this. Okay, just bear with me a minute. Okay, how's that going? Is that okay? I'm not hearing anything, so I'll assume that everything's all right. I should say I'm giving this talk on behalf of my colleague, Dr. Baha El-Moussawi. This is very much his project. I work with him on it, but I'm giving it in his place. He couldn't be here either, so so you're sort of getting second hand, as it were. So I'll talk about the work, I'll talk about the background behind it, I'll talk about what we've actually done. In some ways, it complements the previous speaker who's talking about the provision of data. This is a talk about some of the things that we have done with that data that's available. So I'll just get started. This is what I'm going to talk about. It's not as long a talk as it looks. It shouldn't be too much onerous. I'm going to talk about the project itself. I'm going to talk very briefly about BGP. I think for this audience, it's probably not really that necessary. But one of the things that Baha did as part of his PhD work was he used some of these repositories of data, including RIPE data, to try and understand some of the characteristics of BGP. And he applied a fairly novel technique for trying to understand it, and this is RQA. In particular, is interested in detecting variations in BGP behaviour using this particular technique. That's on the basis of his PhD, and the actual technique itself was implemented as a software tool, which happening very kind of supported us in developing that. So anyway, so this is the project. It came out of his PhD work. He's interested in detecting disruptive behaviour of BGP nodes. Okay, so he made use of a technique from nonlinear time series analysis called recurrence quantification analysis. There have been lots and lots of research trying to understand BGP. We think this particular approach is good for identifying anomalous BGP. It's not necessarily the last word to be said about what BGP looks like, but certainly detecting anomalous behaviour is quite an interesting, we think, effective approach. The software is available from our website. Important point to make is that this approach is lightweight and easy to implement. Alrighty, BGP, I really don't need to tell you any stuff. Routing protocol for connection between autonomous systems. Path vector protocol that specifies the path of autonomous vectors. It's not topologically dependent like other routing protocols. You can peer across the network. Important points are that it's very defensive mechanism. It's not as exposed as other routing protocols. So exploits far fewer. When things do happen, though, they can be very, very dangerous. All right, so this is something that well understood. There's a lot more BGP traffic than you expect. Okay, I mean BGP is a protocol. It's a protocol that where the should really reflect changes in the topology or network engineering decisions, load balancing or something like that. There's an awful lot of BGP traffic isn't like that. Most BGP traffic is announcement followed soon after by withdrawal. And there's lots and lots. There's been quite a lot of research why. And these are some of the overlapping versus interaction timer flags. There seems to be a lot of BGP traffic, most BGP of this nature. There's some early studies in the 1990s, more than 90% of the traffic is not. Been techniques and so on to try and minimize that, but still, you have this background of BGP activity. Doesn't relate to anything actually happening. Here's an example of what BGP traffic can look like. Now, this is actually one of the events. I think this is Moscow blackout. You can see if you're looking at the number of BGP updates coming from SAS, it looks like normal. Okay. Here's something interesting happening. This was the actual event. Then it settled down and you just have this noise. You know, this is the actual volume of traffic. This is the average path things as well that's being advertised by that ASF. Again, it looks quite noisy, like noise. This raises the question that addressed in Baha's research. Most of the traffic is unrelated to topology or network engineering. And what is a BGP anomaly? Okay, what is anomalous BGP traffic? If there's no relationship to some network engineering decision, then by definition all BGP traffic is anomalous. Sorry, all of that traffic that's not related to new decisions. So we were wanting to detect changes in that traffic, things that can have some significant effect that might be an indicator of some problem. Okay, so part of the research was that what we saw was that BGP traffic does have some structure, not noise in the sequence, okay, not uncorrelated, not random. There is some structure within it that can be used to identify true anomalies. Okay.
Philip, sorry to interrupt you. The audio is not very good, so we were wondering whether you could disable your video.
I can't hear a word you're saying, I'm sorry.
Can you check the chat?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Should I persist?
If you can disable the video because the audio is not very good.
Okay, I can't hear, but I'll just assume that I'll continue. Right, so look, some of our research is that BDP has recurrent behaviour. Okay, recurrence is another way of describing traffic. You have periodic behaviour, you have traffic that is, or you have signals that are a noise. Recurrent traffic is something the same. It might go through a particular sequence of events, then go to another event, then back to. Right, and this leads us to something called recurrence quantification analysis, which we've applied to these. So the idea is that you have a system of some sort of paths, some kind of multi-dimensional phase space. Right now, that's a bit obscure and so on, but basically the idea is that it has a certain thing for a certain period of time, then it goes to another sort of, then it does some other behaviour, then it might come back to it. For instance, it might sort of circle around here, then perhaps go over to this part here for a while, then perhaps head up around here. And so it sort of traces this path within this particular space. Now, so it doesn't go over here. It's going over here is unusual. So that's the basic idea of a recurrence. You have that behaviour. Now, recurrence quantification analysis has been quite a lot of work on it the past few years. There's quite a few metrics that come out of it. And there's some of the recurrence rate. The rate at which it traverses back to known areas is recurrence rate. The determinant, the predictability, the entropy, complement of that is the randomness. The tracking time, the amount of time it stays in one particular state before zipping off to another. So there's quite a few different metrics, and that's basically what we've done. We've used data that we've got hold of, analysed the kind of changes in traffic. Okay, so this is the idea. So you've got, we come to this conclusion. BGP is well modelled this approach. So we looked at these metrics, update volumes, path length, so that they do have some sort of recurrent behaviour. So here's the average path length from one to AS. You can see that there's something of an anomaly around here. Okay, so it's sort of up around here, sort of the same sort of region of phase space most of the time, and it drops around. And this is perhaps of some sort of, okay, and perhaps this does indicate some kind of. The idea behind applying RQA to BGP gives us this sort of structure. This is a two-dimensional representation of all the different states that the system can take with the phase space. Now, if it was purely random, these would be random dots scattered across this, but they're not. You can see that the black areas, they represent areas of phase space that are not visible. The white areas are areas that are visible. So you can see it has some sort of structure. Even though it might look random up here, there's actually some sort of structure. Changes to that structure are perhaps indicative of some kind of event. That's the idea behind it. All right, so what that leads us to the anomaly detection tool that the project is talking about here. We've implemented these ideas in software. As I said, it's available here. These are the system of scripts, modules to extract RQA data and present them in whatever form, text form, graphical form. So this is how it's made up. We've got the number of different scripts, Perl and Bash. Make use of some software plot for plotting some of the behaviour, and the RQA part of it has come out of this package here. It takes as input BGP updates from BGP speaker, formats them, and then processes them. Put in quite a few options. So you can have an email notification capability. You can scan based on the autonomous system down to the particular IP address. You can replay events, and you can present the results in graphic or text form. Here's the example of how you can lots and lots of different options. In this case here, Normally it's detected, it sends an email notification, and it also generates a real-time plot. So this is the idea. So here we are. Here's the BGP volume, how much is happening. Then suddenly something happens around here. This is a real event, Malaysia a few years back, and you can see that this does look quite noisy. See there's sort of things happening up around here. Now, okay, by the time you start to get flooded with BGP updates, maybe you're done to the fact that there's something going on. But there's some indication that earlier on, 2 hours beforehand, that something is not quite right. That was these alarms here. So this is the output of the system. You get these things here, and you can also get alarms. Of course, with these sorts of systems, you have the issue of false positives and false negatives. We've done quite a lot of work looking at tuning these systems to try and minimize false positives. And that's included in the technical coordination of the software. Okay, that's my talk, short and sweet. We looked at some data, we found some interesting characteristics, and we've written some software, put together some software to actually implement that particular technique. Replay events displayed in graphical and text form. Thanks very much for your attention. And I don't know what the sound quality was like. I was getting these messages telling me that it was terrible, but we'll see. And we want to acknowledge the support of APNIC. Thank you very much for that. Okay.
Thanks, Philip. I know if you can. I don't know if you can hear me now.
I can hardly hear you. I can hardly hear you.
You can't.
Well, sorry.
Unfortunately, the audio was not very good. We have all realized that, thanks to the stenographer, because I'm sure that was hard, and it helped a lot having the transcript. I don't know if there are questions. So thanks, Philip. Any other comments before we wrap up with the session on data gathering in general, ideas, comments, experiences to share? Okay, so I think we can go to social. Thanks a lot for participating, and see you tomorrow.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Philip.
Okay, bye-bye.